Welcome to our channel. Today, we're diving into Atomic Habits by James Clear, a transformative guide that unpacks how tiny changes can lead to monumental life shifts. Clear, a leading expert on habit formation, explains how even the smallest habits shape who we become and how we can take control of them to build the lives we envision. Why should you tune in? Because mastering habits is the cornerstone of lasting success, and Atomic Habits gives you the tools to do just that. If you're here to elevate your life, you're in the right place. Our channel's motto is to empower you with insights that fuel personal growth, one book at a time. Be sure to subscribe, like, and comment below on which book summary you'd like next. Stay with us, and let's make your best self a daily habit. Chapter 1. The Surprising Power of Atomic Habits. In the opening chapter of Atomic Habits, James Clear introduces the idea of atomic habits, small changes that, when compounded over time, lead to significant results. Clear argues that too often, people overlook the power of small, consistent improvements, focusing instead on large, transformative changes. By making slight adjustments, individuals can experience remarkable personal and professional growth. Clear uses the example of British cycling to illustrate the power of incremental change. For years, British cyclists were mediocre on the world stage, but when coach Dave Brailsford took over, he implemented a strategy of marginal gains, finding 1% improvements in multiple areas. From modifying bike seats to adjusting riders' nutrition and sleep, these minor improvements added up over time. As a result, British cyclists dominated the Olympics and the Tour de France within a decade. Clear's concept hinges on the idea that habits are the compound interest of self-improvement. Just as small amounts of money grow significantly through compounding, tiny habits can lead to substantial results over time. Conversely, negative habits compound too, leading to setbacks. For instance, a daily choice to procrastinate may not seem harmful at first, but it gradually erodes productivity and confidence. To help readers understand the importance of small habits, Clear discusses the plateau of latent potential. This concept explains why progress is often invisible at first. Imagine you're trying to melt an ice cube by raising the temperature gradually. At first, nothing seems to happen until you hit 32 degrees, when it finally starts to melt. Similarly, positive habits may seem ineffective initially, but they ultimately yield results if you stick with them. Clear emphasizes the difference between outcomes, processes, and identity when establishing habits. Most people focus on outcomes, setting goals such as, "I want to lose weight," or "I want to be productive." However, Clear suggests that focusing on the process, the actions leading to results, and, more importantly, on identity, seeing oneself as someone who embodies the habit, is more effective. For instance, instead of aiming to run a marathon, aim to become a runner. According to Clear, identity-based habits are more sustainable because they align with how you see yourself. When you shift your self-perception, you're more likely to stick with new habits. Clear suggests asking, who is the type of person that could achieve the outcome I want? For example, if you want to get fit, adopting the identity of a person who values health will help you build exercise into your daily life as a natural behavior. Ultimately, Clear challenges readers to think about the person they want to become, rather than just the results they want. He notes that every action you take is a vote for the type of person you want to become. By making small, consistent choices that align with this identity, you can build positive habits over time. In summary, Chapter 1 establishes the groundwork for understanding the effectiveness of small, incremental changes and their long-term impact. Clear sets up the foundation for the rest of the book by showing how tiny habits can reshape one's identity and ultimately transform life outcomes. This principle, that atomic habits lead to profound changes, is the core of his philosophy. Chapter 2. How your habits shape your identity. In Chapter 2 of Atomic Habits, James Clear explores how our habits are intrinsically tied to our identity. Clear argues that every action we take reinforces our self-perception, shaping who we believe we are. This connection between habits and identity is essential because to truly change your habits, you must focus on the type of person you want to become. Clear explains that people often approach habits by focusing on outcomes, like losing weight or earning more money. However, outcome-based approaches often fail because they do not address the root cause of behavior. Clear instead advocates for an identity-based approach to habits. This means focusing on who you want to be rather than just what you want to achieve. For example, rather than setting a goal to read 20 books a year, see yourself as a reader. When you identify as a reader, picking up a book becomes a natural part of your identity, making the habit easier to sustain. An example Clear provides is that of a smoker who's trying to quit. When offered a cigarette, if the person responds, "No thanks, I'm trying to quit," they are focusing on the outcome rather than the identity. However, if they respond with, "No thanks, I'm not a smoker," they are reinforcing a new self-perception, someone who does not smoke. This identity shift makes the habit change more sustainable because they are no longer struggling against their old identity. Clear describes habits as votes for or against our desired identity. Each small action we take reinforces the person we want to become. While a single instance may seem insignificant, over time, the repeated action adds weight to our desired identity. For instance, if you want to become fit, each time you work out, you're casting a vote for becoming a fit person. Consistent, small actions ultimately accumulate into a powerful identity shift. This chapter emphasizes that identity is a process, not a fixed trait. Clear encourages readers to ask themselves two questions when building new habits. Who do I want to become? And what does this type of person do? These questions help align actions with the identity you want to adopt. For example, if you want to be more organized, you might ask, what does an organized person do? Then, start adopting small habits that reflect this mindset, like tidying up daily. Clear's philosophy is that change is most successful when it aligns with your sense of self. By focusing on identity rather than just outcomes, you're more likely to make changes that last. Identity-based habits help you embody the type of person who naturally engages in these behaviors, making the process of habit formation less reliant on willpower and more on self-alignment. In summary, Chapter 2 of Atomic Habits encourages readers to think about habit building as a means of shaping identity. Clear emphasizes that the real purpose of habits is not just to get results, but to reinforce the person you want to be. By focusing on identity rather than just goals, you can create habits that are more meaningful and lasting, ultimately transforming your life from the inside out. Chapter 3: How to Build Better Habits in 4 Simple Steps. In Chapter 3 of Atomic Habits, James Clear introduces a framework for building and understanding habits through 4 essential steps: cue, craving, response, and reward. Clear's approach helps readers understand the mechanics behind why habits form and how they can consciously create better ones. By recognizing these steps, you gain the ability to design habits that serve your goals rather than undermine them. The first stage, cue, is a trigger that signals your brain to initiate a habit. Cues can take many forms, like a specific time of day, an emotional state, or a location. For example, if you feel stressed, cue, you might reach for your phone to scroll through social media. Clear highlights the power of environmental cues, emphasizing that small changes in your surroundings can influence your behavior. If you want to eat healthier, for example, keep nutritious snacks at eye level so they become the obvious choice when you feel hungry. The second stage, craving, represents the motivational force behind every habit. Cravings are not about the action itself, but about the change it promises. For instance, we don't crave brushing our teeth, but rather the feeling of freshness that comes afterward. This stage is where our desires drive us to act. Clear suggests reframing your cravings to align with positive habits. Instead of seeing exercise as a chore, view it as a path to increased energy and well-being, making it more appealing to pursue. The third stage, response, is the actual habit or action you perform. This stage will occur only if you are both motivated and able to do it. For instance, you may crave going for a run, but if you're physically exhausted, you might skip it. Clear emphasizes starting with tiny actions to make habits easier. For example, if you want to build a reading habit, begin by reading just 1 page a day. Over time, as the habit becomes part of your routine, you can gradually increase the difficulty, leading to a more sustained habit. The fourth and final stage is the reward, which satisfies your craving and reinforces the habit. Rewards serve two purposes. They satisfy our immediate needs and signal our brain to repeat the behavior in the future. A reward creates a sense of satisfaction, and without it, the habit loop may fail to reinforce. For example, after completing a workout, you might reward yourself with a relaxing shower, reinforcing the idea that working out brings a sense of reward and relaxation. Clear illustrates these four steps by discussing how habits can be simplified to either reinforce positive behaviors or reduce negative ones. For example, if you want to limit screen time, make your phone less accessible by placing it in another room. In doing so, you're removing the cue, making it less likely to initiate the habit loop. Similarly, to create a new habit, make it as easy and rewarding as possible to trigger each of these four steps smoothly. By dissecting habits into these four steps, Clear provides a practical framework for mastering habit formation. Whether your goal is to start exercising, eat healthier, or improve your focus, understanding the cue, craving, response, and reward stages can help you create habits that are both effective and sustainable. In summary, Chapter 3 of Atomic Habits equips readers with the foundational knowledge to build better habits through a four-step process. Clear's breakdown helps you identify areas where your habits might fail and provides insights into how you can adapt them for greater success. By consciously applying this four-step method, you can design a life filled with habits that align with your identity and aspirations. Chapter 4. The Man Who Didn't Look Right. In Chapter 4 of Atomic Habits, James Clear introduces the concept of cue recognition as the first step in building new habits. Clear argues that our brains are constantly scanning the environment for cues that spark specific actions, often without us realizing it. He explains that our ability to recognize cues that prompt certain habits, good or bad, is key to creating positive behavior change. Clear uses the story of a woman who could predict her husband's stroke symptoms simply by observing subtle cues in his behavior. She recognized small signs, like slurred speech and difficulty with coordination, which she connected to a potential health issue. This ability to notice subtle cues and connect them with specific outcomes is something we can harness when forming new habits. By training ourselves to look for cues that align with desired behaviors, we can trigger positive actions. Clear introduces the cue routine reward loop to illustrate how habits form. According to this model, a habit is essentially a loop that starts with a cue, followed by a routine, behavior, and ends with a reward. The cue triggers the habit, the routine is the habit itself, and the reward reinforces the habit, making it more likely to recur. For example, if you want to build a habit of exercising, you could use a specific time as the cue, the workout as the routine, and the positive feeling afterward as the reward. One practical approach Clear suggests is to make cues more obvious to help initiate the behavior. For instance, if you want to read more, place a book in an obvious place like your bedside table. This visible cue serves as a reminder, making it more likely that you'll pick up the book and start reading. Clear emphasizes that the easier and more visible the cue, the more likely it is to trigger the desired behavior. Another key point in this chapter is Clear's advice on controlling your environment to control your cues. The environment shapes human behavior significantly, and we often respond automatically to the cues around us. If you're trying to eat healthier, for example, you might place healthy snacks on your kitchen counter and store junk food out of sight. By designing your environment to support positive cues, you reduce the mental effort needed to make healthier choices. Clear also discusses breaking bad habits by making negative cues less visible. For example, if you find yourself scrolling on your phone too often, consider placing it in another room while you work. Removing the cue from your immediate environment helps disrupt the habit loop, making it easier to resist the behavior. In summary, Chapter 4 of Atomic Habits explains that recognizing and shaping cues is critical for forming positive habits and breaking negative ones. By making cues for good habits more obvious and removing cues for bad habits, we can better control our behavior and steer ourselves toward our goals. This chapter encourages us to pay close attention to the small signals that shape our actions and to create an environment that supports our desired habits. Chapter 5. the best way to start a new habit. In Chapter 5 of Atomic Habits, James Clear explores how to effectively start new habits by leveraging the concept of implementation intentions. Rather than vaguely deciding to improve in an area, creating a specific plan for when, where, and how you will perform your new habit greatly increases your chances of success. Clear explains that one of the best ways to set yourself up for success is to pair a desired behavior with an existing routine. This strategy is known as habit stacking. Clear introduces the concept of implementation intentions with a simple formula: I will behavior at time in location. This formula acts as a mental prompt, making it easier to remember to act on your intention. For example, instead of saying, I want to exercise more, specify, I will do a 15-minute workout at 7 a.m. in my living room. By clarifying when and where you'll complete the task, you reduce ambiguity and are more likely to follow through. Habit stacking takes implementation intentions a step further by connecting a new habit to an established one. For instance, if you already have a morning coffee routine, you could stack a new habit of reading for 10 minutes right after you pour your coffee. This concept uses your existing behaviors as cues for new habits, making the process feel natural and integrated. As an example, Clear shares his own habit stack, where he plans his day after making his morning coffee, creating a seamless transition between established and new behaviors. Clear emphasizes that the key to successful habit stacking is to pair new behaviors with habits that naturally fit into your daily rhythm. For example, if you want to practice gratitude, try stacking it onto a nighttime routine, like brushing your teeth. Every time you brush your teeth, remind yourself to think of 3 things you're grateful for. By attaching new habits to consistent cues, you make it easier to remember and implement them without overwhelming yourself. One of the powerful examples Clear provides is how habit stacking helped one reader incorporate more stretches into their day. This person wanted to add stretching but found it challenging to remember or prioritize. By stacking stretches onto their existing tea-making routine, they were able to complete stretches while waiting for the water to boil each morning, transforming what was once an idle moment into a productive part of their day. To maximize the effectiveness of habit stacking, Clear suggests starting with small, manageable behaviors and building on them gradually. This approach helps prevent overwhelm and ensures that your habit stacking routine remains sustainable over time. For example, if your goal is to develop a writing habit, start by stacking just a few minutes of writing onto an existing habit, like after breakfast. Once this becomes second nature, you can extend the writing time. In conclusion, Chapter 5 of Atomic Habits teaches that starting a new habit is significantly easier when you use implementation intentions and habit stacking. By creating a specific plan and linking new habits to established routines, you can make behavior change more achievable and consistent. These techniques allow you to incorporate new habits into your daily life with ease, ensuring that your goals are supported by practical, actionable steps. Chapter 6. Motivation is overrated. Environment matters more. In Chapter 6 of Atomic Habits, James Clear emphasizes that motivation alone is often insufficient to drive consistent behavior change. Instead, he argues that shaping our environment can have a more profound impact on creating lasting habits. Clear explains that our environment plays a critical role in influencing our actions, as it provides cues that trigger certain behaviors. By intentionally designing our surroundings to support desired actions, we can make it easier to build positive habits without relying heavily on willpower. Clear uses a fascinating example from World War II to illustrate this point. During the war, the American government encouraged citizens to eat more organ meats, which were readily available and high in nutrients but weren't popular. Instead of simply telling people to change their diets, the government enlisted behavioral scientists who adjusted the presentation of these foods. By reframing and renaming dishes, they made organ meats more appealing. This small change in the environment of food presentation led to a shift in consumption habits, showing how influential the environment can be in shaping behavior. The first major lesson Clear highlights is that rather than depending on motivation, we should focus on making the cues for our desired behaviors obvious and accessible. For instance, if someone wants to exercise regularly, setting up a workout space at home or keeping exercise equipment visible can serve as a consistent reminder, making it more likely that they will follow through. This way, the environment itself becomes a trigger for the desired action, reducing reliance on motivation alone. Clear also talks about reducing friction in your environment to support new habits. Friction is anything that makes a behavior more challenging to perform. To illustrate, he describes how putting a bowl of fruit on the kitchen counter makes it easier to choose a healthy snack over junk food. By making the healthier choice more accessible, you reduce friction, thereby increasing the likelihood of making a better choice. Conversely, adding friction to undesirable habits, like placing the TV remote in a drawer or deleting social media apps, can help prevent unwanted behaviors. The concept of context is another important element in this chapter. Clear argues that context shapes behavior by providing cues and associations. For instance, a person might associate their bed with relaxation, which makes it challenging to use the bed as a productive workspace. To establish a habit of working out, creating a specific workout zone at home can reinforce that behavior each time you enter that space. By creating physical spaces dedicated to certain activities, we establish mental associations that strengthen the habit over time. A practical technique Clear recommends is resetting your environment regularly to reinforce positive habits. This might mean tidying up your workspace after finishing a task or preparing your running clothes the night before a morning run. Each time you reset your environment, you're signaling a fresh start, which can help reinforce the habit loop. For example, after clearing your desk at the end of the workday, you'll be more likely to approach the next day with focus and readiness to work. To sum up, Chapter 6 of Atomic Habits teaches us that, while motivation has its place, it's often inconsistent and unreliable for sustained behavior change. Instead, creating an environment that supports our goals can make it easier to build habits. By strategically designing our surroundings, reducing friction for good habits, adding friction for unwanted ones, and regularly resetting our environment, we make it easier to make the right choices consistently. Clear's insights encourage us to look at our environment as a powerful tool for habit transformation. Chapter 7. The Secret to Self-Control. In Chapter 7 of Atomic Habits, James Clear explores self-control and why many people struggle with resisting temptations. He explains that while self-control is often seen as the key to habit success, relying on willpower alone is not sustainable. Instead, Clear argues that structuring our environment to reduce exposure to temptations is a more effective approach. One of Clear's key points is that self-control is easier to maintain when we are not constantly exposed to triggers for bad habits. For example, if someone wants to stop eating junk food, keeping sweets and snacks out of sight or out of the house entirely removes the temptation. This way, instead of relying on sheer willpower to resist the snacks, the person has created an environment that doesn't tempt them in the first place. Clear emphasizes that this strategy can apply to any habit, whether it's eating healthier, spending less time on social media, or increasing productivity. Clear introduces the concept of cue-induced cravings to explain how the presence of certain cues can trigger desires and habits we're trying to avoid. For instance, seeing a pack of cigarettes might immediately create a craving for someone trying to quit smoking. By eliminating these cues from the environment, we reduce the frequency of cravings and, consequently, the need for self-control. Clear shares an example of a study involving heroin addicts in the Vietnam War, where soldiers who became addicted during the war had a remarkably high recovery rate upon returning home. This was largely because their environment changed drastically, removing cues and associations tied to their addiction. Clear also highlights the importance of automating positive habits to avoid self-control struggles. For example, setting up automatic transfers to savings accounts helps people build a habit of saving without the daily temptation to spend. Similarly, signing up for a fitness class that bills automatically can encourage regular attendance because it requires minimal decision-making, removing the need to exercise self-control over time. By setting up habits that work automatically, we reduce decision fatigue and free ourselves from the constant mental battle of resisting temptations. To further illustrate, Clear talks about social influence and accountability as external controls that can reduce the need for self-discipline. People who are surrounded by others with good habits tend to adopt those behaviors naturally, as humans are wired to conform to group norms. This effect is also why accountability partnerships or fitness groups work so well. When others expect us to show up or follow through, we are more likely to stick to positive habits. Creating a supportive social environment can make it easier to build good habits by aligning our behavior with the people around us. Clear concludes by reminding readers that we all have limits on self-control, and designing environments to reduce temptations is a more reliable strategy than relying on willpower. When we structure our surroundings to support positive behaviors and reduce exposure to negative cues, we make success easier and more sustainable. Rather than placing pressure on ourselves to be constantly strong-willed, we can optimize our environment to work in our favor, paving the way for consistent progress with our habits. Chapter 8. The Law of Least Effort. In Chapter 8 of Atomic Habits, James Clear introduces the law of least effort, which states that humans will naturally gravitate toward the option that requires the least amount of effort. Clear argues that making habits easy to complete is one of the most powerful strategies for ensuring long-term success. Clear begins by explaining that our brains are wired to conserve energy, and we seek the path of least resistance in everything we do. This means that when faced with multiple options, we tend to choose the one that demands the least effort, whether physically or mentally. The law of least effort is not only about physical exertion but also about minimizing mental strain, as the brain continuously looks for ways to reduce cognitive load. This principle can be leveraged to create habits that are easy and enjoyable to stick to. One powerful way to apply this principle is by making your desired habits easy to start. For example, if you want to establish a habit of exercising in the morning, Clear suggests preparing your workout clothes the night before. By having everything ready and visible, you reduce the decision-making process and make it much easier to take that first step. By lowering the friction to starting the habit, you make it far more likely that you will follow through. Clear also discusses how environment plays a critical role in making habits easier to perform. If you want to eat healthier, for instance, keeping fruits and vegetables in plain sight and storing junk food out of view makes healthy eating the easier choice. By changing your environment to align with your goals, you can automatically shift your behavior toward more productive actions. Clear gives the example of a family who reduced their kids' screen time by placing their TVs in difficult-to-reach places, effectively reducing the amount of effort it took to access the TV and thereby reducing the time spent in front of it. Clear also explains how habit stacking can be used to leverage the law of least effort. This involves attaching a new habit to an existing one that already requires little effort. For instance, if you already have the habit of brushing your teeth every night, you could stack the habit of flossing immediately afterward. The key here is to make the new habit so simple that it requires little additional effort or thought. By associating the new habit with something you already do automatically, you're more likely to stick with it. An interesting example Clear uses in this chapter is the story of the 2-minute rule. He suggests that when starting a new habit, it should take less than 2 minutes to complete. The idea is that breaking down a new behavior into a small, manageable action makes it much easier to begin. For example, instead of committing to a 30-minute workout, you could start by simply committing to putting on your workout clothes or doing one push-up. Once the 2-minute habit becomes automatic, you can gradually increase the effort. This approach significantly reduces resistance to starting and creates momentum for more significant habits. Clear emphasizes that small habits lead to big changes. By applying the law of least effort, individuals can make tiny adjustments to their environment and routines that compound over time, leading to massive transformations. It's not about making huge, immediate changes. It's about consistently choosing the easiest path that aligns with your goals. When the path to a habit is easy and frictionless, you're more likely to stick with it in the long term. The law of least effort is a powerful tool in habit formation because it taps into the brain's natural tendencies, making habits more effortless to start and maintain. By minimizing obstacles, simplifying your environment, and starting small, you can use the law of least effort to make your desired habits as easy as possible to follow through on. This chapter teaches us that by making habits easy and enjoyable, we increase our chances of success and create lasting change. Chapter 9. The Role of Family and Friends in Shaping Your Habits. In Atomic Habits, James Clear highlights how crucial the role of family and friends can be in shaping our habits. This chapter discusses how the people we surround ourselves with can either support or hinder our progress in building better habits. Clear emphasizes that habits are often shaped by the social circles we engage with, which can act as a mirror reflecting our behaviors, beliefs, and attitudes. Clear introduces the concept of social norms and how they influence our actions. He explains that we naturally conform to the behaviors of those around us, as humans are social creatures wired for connection. If we surround ourselves with people who prioritize healthy living, for example, we are more likely to adopt those habits ourselves. On the other hand, if our social circle indulges in unhealthy behaviors or habits, we may find it harder to maintain positive changes. Clear offers the example of a study conducted on people trying to quit smoking, where those who had friends or family members who had quit successfully were far more likely to quit themselves. The influence of social connections can work both positively and negatively, depending on the habits that are prevalent within your social group. This principle is evident in the way that smokers who associate with non-smokers or people who value a healthy lifestyle are more likely to adopt similar behaviors. He goes on to explain that our social circles act as both support systems and accountability partners. For instance, if you're trying to develop a regular exercise routine, working out with a friend or family member can help keep you motivated. The simple act of having someone to share the journey with can provide the necessary encouragement, especially on days when motivation wanes. Similarly, being part of a social group that encourages reading or productivity can help you develop those habits more easily. Clear discusses how this works in terms of identity. Our identity is shaped by the groups we identify with. When we see ourselves as part of a group that values a certain behavior, such as being a runner or a healthy eater, we're more likely to align our actions with that identity. This process is powerful because it shifts the focus from short-term goals to long-term identity transformation. Instead of focusing on simply exercising more, you begin to see yourself as someone who prioritizes fitness, which naturally drives consistent behavior. A fascinating example Clear shares is the story of a woman named Sarah who had struggled to develop a regular habit of exercising. She joined a running group where members were supportive and consistent in their attendance. Over time, Sarah's identity shifted from being someone who occasionally runs to someone who is part of a committed group of runners. This sense of belonging was key to her success. The social pressure of being part of a group that values fitness helped her establish a routine and remain consistent, even when motivation alone was not enough. Clear further emphasizes that negative influences can derail progress. If you are surrounded by people who discourage healthy behaviors or mock positive changes, it can undermine your motivation and make it harder to maintain those habits. For example, if you're trying to eat healthier and your friends constantly offer you unhealthy snacks or make fun of your dietary choices, it becomes more difficult to stay on track. The importance of surrounding yourself with people who support your goals cannot be overstated. Another powerful strategy Clear suggests is the use of peer pressure in a positive way. When we surround ourselves with people who share our goals, we are more likely to achieve them because we don't want to disappoint the group. This is a simple yet profound way of using social connections to reinforce the desired behavior. It's the reason why programs like group fitness classes or book clubs work so well. They create an environment where habits are not only encouraged but also socially reinforced. Clear's message is clear. If you want to build better habits, you need to surround yourself with people who align with the habits you want to adopt. Whether you are trying to exercise more, eat healthier, or improve your productivity, finding people who support and encourage your goals is a powerful catalyst for success. Additionally, being part of a group with similar habits creates a sense of accountability, which can push you to stick with your goals, even when challenges arise. By using the power of social influence to shape your environment, you can create a feedback loop that makes your desired habits easier to adopt. Surrounding yourself with positive, supportive people helps to reinforce your actions, making it easier to develop lasting habits that align with your goals. This chapter highlights the immense power that our social networks have in shaping who we become and what habits we form. Chapter 10. How to find and fix the cause of your bad habits. In this chapter, James Clear emphasizes that the best way to tackle bad habits is by uncovering and addressing the root cause behind them. He encourages readers to explore the cycle that governs every habit, comprising cue, craving, response, and reward, and suggests practical strategies for disrupting this sequence. By recognizing the true motivations driving a habit and modifying the surrounding environment, Clear shows how to create long-lasting change. Identifying the cues that trigger bad habits. Clear starts by explaining that every habit has a cue, a signal that sets the habit into motion. To eliminate a bad habit, it's essential to identify the specific cues that trigger it. For example, a person might notice that they reach for their phone when they feel bored or stressed. By pinpointing boredom or stress as the cue, they can begin to address it directly. Recognizing these cues is the first step in controlling and eventually breaking free from undesirable habits. Exploring the craving and desire for change. Clear asserts that cravings lie at the heart of habits. They represent the emotional drivers behind our actions. If someone continually reaches for a snack after a long workday, it may not be hunger but rather a craving for relaxation or pleasure that drives the behavior. Clear advises shifting the focus from resisting the urge to eat snacks to understanding and addressing the underlying craving for relaxation. Once the craving is clear, it's easier to substitute the behavior with healthier choices, like taking a walk or reading a book to unwind. Replacing responses with healthier behaviors. Clear suggests that rather than merely suppressing a bad habit, we should look for ways to replace it with something more beneficial. Each response in the habit cycle can be redirected toward positive actions. Suppose a person habitually watches television late into the night to unwind. Clear would recommend replacing that response with a healthier routine, like reading or engaging in meditation. These alternative responses not only address the need for relaxation, but also lead to healthier outcomes. Replacing rather than removing habits reduces the likelihood of feeling deprived, making it easier to maintain new behaviors over time. Reinforcing rewards in a positive way. To truly make a habit stick, Clear explains that the reward associated with it should be satisfying. By focusing on the positive outcome of the new behavior, people can reinforce their commitment. For instance, when someone swaps late-night TV with a consistent bedtime routine, they may notice an improvement in energy and mood the next day. This reward makes the new behavior more appealing, reinforcing their motivation to continue. Clear emphasizes that creating rewarding experiences is crucial for breaking the cycle of bad habits and replacing them with positive ones. Changing environmental cues to support better choices. Clear's approach to fixing bad habits also involves reshaping the environment to minimize temptation and encourage better behaviors. He illustrates this with an example of productivity in the workplace. If a person frequently checks their phone at their desk, Clear suggests placing the phone out of reach to reduce distractions. Similarly, someone who wants to reduce their sugar intake might keep sweets out of sight and stock their pantry with healthier snacks. By proactively controlling environmental cues, one can create a setting that aligns with their goals, making it easier to form habits that support positive change. In summary, Clear's strategy for breaking bad habits centers around understanding and altering the habit loop by identifying cues, addressing cravings, replacing responses, reinforcing rewards, and modifying environmental factors. This chapter empowers readers to examine their habits more closely, offering a straightforward yet effective approach to overcoming negative patterns and creating positive change. Chapter 11. Walk slowly but never backward. In Chapter 11 of Atomic Habits, James Clear highlights the importance of continuous progress, however small. He emphasizes that consistently moving forward, even with tiny steps, is more valuable than rapid, unsustainable changes. By committing to daily incremental improvements, Clear shows how small, manageable actions compound over time to create significant, lasting transformation. The power of incremental gains. Clear illustrates how minor improvements, even as little as 1%, can compound into meaningful results. He explains that rather than trying to make dramatic shifts all at once, it's more effective to focus on making small, steady improvements. Clear uses examples from athletes and entrepreneurs who became successful by focusing on continuous, incremental progress, demonstrating that greatness is built through small, sustained actions rather than sudden bursts. Building momentum through small wins. Small achievements serve as building blocks for motivation. Clear explains that each minor victory builds confidence, helping people stay engaged in their goals. For instance, a person aiming to exercise more might start by simply putting on workout clothes every morning. This tiny action can lead to bigger steps, eventually developing into a full workout routine. By focusing on small wins, individuals create a positive momentum that makes them feel capable and committed to their goals. Avoiding the trap of perfectionism. Clear warns against the pitfalls of perfectionism, which can often lead to inaction. Perfectionism creates a mental barrier where anything short of a perfect outcome feels like failure. Clear suggests focusing instead on progress, which emphasizes learning and growth over unrealistic expectations. He encourages readers to value any improvement, however small, as a victory in itself. By shifting the focus from perfection to progress, people are more likely to act, making steady, sustainable changes. Embracing patience for long-term success. Clear reminds readers that meaningful change requires patience. The impact of consistent small changes may not be immediately visible, but with time, they accumulate into transformative results. He shares examples of people who committed to gradual improvement and saw substantial success over the years. This patient approach prevents burnout and allows individuals to sustain their efforts over the long term, cultivating habits that lead to lasting fulfillment and success. Chapter 11 emphasizes that steady, incremental progress is the foundation of habit formation and growth. Clear's message is that by focusing on small wins, avoiding perfectionism, and embracing patience, anyone can make lasting change. Walking slowly but consistently leads to success without the need for perfection or haste. Chapter 12. The Law of Least Effort. In Chapter 12 of Atomic Habits, James Clear explores the concept of reducing friction in our environment to make positive habits easier and negative habits harder. Clear argues that the less effort a behavior requires, the more likely we are to do it. By designing our surroundings to encourage beneficial habits and discourage unproductive ones, we can make lasting changes with less mental resistance. The path of least resistance. Clear explains that humans are naturally inclined to follow the path of least resistance. When something is easy, we're more likely to do it. When it's difficult, we tend to avoid it. Clear encourages readers to leverage this principle by structuring their environment so that their desired habits are as effortless as possible. For example, someone trying to eat healthier might place fruits and vegetables at eye level in the refrigerator. This setup makes choosing healthier snacks easier than searching for unhealthy options. Creating an environment that encourages positive habits. One of Clear's key recommendations is to adjust our physical environment to make good behaviors more convenient. He uses the example of people who want to read more but struggle to find time. By placing a book on the nightstand, readers are more likely to reach for it before bed. Similarly, someone who wants to exercise regularly could lay out workout clothes the night before to reduce any barriers to starting a morning workout. Increasing friction for bad habits. Clear also advises increasing friction for habits we want to reduce. By adding steps or obstacles to behaviors we want to avoid, we're less likely to engage in them. For instance, someone trying to cut down on social media usage might delete apps from their phone, requiring more effort to access them on a computer instead. Clear illustrates that by adding friction, we can disrupt unwanted habits and make them less appealing. Making technology work for you. Technology plays a significant role in habit formation, often making habits easier or harder to develop. Clear suggests using technology to support beneficial habits, such as setting automatic reminders or blocking distracting websites during work hours. When used wisely, technology can serve as a powerful tool to reduce friction for positive habits and increase friction for negative ones. Chapter 12 emphasizes the power of simplicity and environment design in habit formation. By aligning our surroundings with our goals and making positive habits easy while increasing friction for negative ones, we create an environment conducive to lasting change. Clear's advice to follow the law of least effort provides a practical framework for achieving our goals effortlessly. Chapter 13. How to stop procrastinating by using the 2-minute rule. In Chapter 13 of Atomic Habits, James Clear introduces a simple yet effective strategy to help overcome procrastination, the 2-minute rule. Clear argues that starting a habit is often the hardest part, and this rule helps ease us into the process. By making a habit so small it takes less than 2 minutes, we're more likely to begin. And once we've started, it's easier to keep going. This chapter emphasizes that progress is more about consistency than immediate intensity. The power of starting small. Clear explains that when a habit feels daunting, we're naturally inclined to procrastinate. By breaking down our goals into manageable, 2-minute actions, we create an approachable entry point. For instance, if someone wants to read more, they could start by reading just 1 page. Clear points out that the goal isn't necessarily to stop at 2 minutes every time. The rule simply gets us started, and the momentum often carries us further. Examples of the 2-minute rule in action. To illustrate, Clear provides examples where this rule can be applied to various habits. For someone aiming to work out more, the initial habit might be to simply change into workout clothes. Once dressed, they're more likely to follow through with the actual workout. Likewise, if the goal is to write daily, starting with just 2 minutes of free writing can help establish the habit of sitting down to write. The purpose of the 2-minute rule is to remove the mental friction associated with beginning a task. Establishing consistency over intensity. One of the central messages in this chapter is that consistency matters more than intensity when building habits. Clear stresses that many people set overly ambitious goals, which leads to burnout or procrastination. By starting with a manageable commitment, like the 2-minute version of a habit, we can establish a regular pattern without overwhelming ourselves. This approach helps in building a habit that can later be scaled up. Expanding the habit once it's established. Clear suggests that once the initial habit is consistently practiced, it can be gradually expanded. After consistently spending 2 minutes on an activity, you may feel naturally inclined to do more, and increasing the effort incrementally becomes easier. For instance, someone who's been reading 1 page every day can increase their reading time to 5 minutes, then 10, and so on. Clear emphasizes that the key is to start small and allow the habit to grow organically rather than pushing too hard too soon. How the 2-minute rule combats procrastination. The 2-minute rule is particularly useful for tackling procrastination because it removes the intimidation factor from starting a task. Clear explains that our brains tend to overestimate the difficulty of actions we haven't begun, leading to avoidance. By making the first step small, we can reduce that psychological resistance. The rule gives us a way to trick our brains into action, setting the stage for consistent progress rather than avoidance. In Chapter 13, James Clear demonstrates that the 2-minute rule is a simple yet powerful tool for building habits. By focusing on just getting started and making that first step as easy as possible, we can overcome procrastination, build consistency, and eventually expand our efforts. This technique serves as a reminder that sometimes the most effective path to lasting change is to start small and let momentum carry us forward. Chapter 14. How to make good habits inevitable and bad habits impossible. In Chapter 14 of Atomic Habits, James Clear introduces the concept of using the environment to reinforce good habits and deter bad ones. This chapter emphasizes that shaping our surroundings can make our desired actions easier to accomplish and undesired actions harder to pursue. Instead of relying solely on willpower, Clear suggests that we engineer our environments to support positive change. The role of environment design in habit formation. Clear explains that environments have a profound impact on behavior. Small adjustments can create huge differences in our choices and habits. For instance, if you want to eat healthier, placing fruits in visible areas while keeping junk food out of sight can nudge you towards healthier options. By intentionally designing our surroundings to make good habits the path of least resistance, we make these habits more likely to stick. Examples of environmental tweaks for habit success. Clear provides several practical examples to illustrate this concept. For instance, if you want to spend less time on social media, you might delete the apps from your phone or keep your phone out of reach during focused work. Similarly, someone who wants to practice an instrument more often might keep it in an accessible location. By removing obstacles to good habits and adding friction to bad habits, we can effectively shape our behavior in positive ways. The power of automation and habit contracts. Another effective approach Clear discusses is automation. For example, setting up automatic savings deposits removes the decision-making process from saving money, making it more likely to happen consistently. Clear also introduces the idea of habit contracts, where individuals make commitments to others to reinforce accountability. If someone promises a friend that they'll stick to a habit, they're often more motivated to follow through. Using the first and third law of behavior change to shape environment. Clear highlights how his first and third laws of behavior change apply to environmental design. The first law, make it obvious, encourages placing cues for good habits in prominent places. The third law, make it easy, suggests removing barriers. Combined, these two laws provide a powerful framework for designing spaces that make beneficial habits more appealing and accessible while discouraging negative behaviors. Removing decision points and reducing temptation. One key takeaway from this chapter is the idea of removing decision points, which are moments when we might choose between different actions. By removing temptations, we reduce the likelihood of indulging in undesirable behaviors. For instance, if you're trying to avoid sweets, you might not buy them at all, so that you won't have the option at home. By structuring environments where temptation isn't an option, good. Chapter 15. The Cardinal Rule of Behavior Change. In this chapter, James Clear emphasizes the cardinal rule of behavior change. What is immediately rewarded is repeated. He highlights the importance of the satisfaction derived from completing a behavior and how it solidifies the habit. For habits to stick, the rewards must come quickly. This principle ensures that positive behaviors are reinforced and likely to be repeated. Immediate rewards and habit formation. Clear explains that the brain is wired to prioritize instant rewards, which explains why it can be difficult to build good habits that don't offer immediate gratification. For example, going to the gym might not show immediate results in terms of physical appearance, but if you can create a rewarding experience tied to the action, such as feeling more energized afterward, it becomes easier to maintain. By associating rewards with your habits, you align with how the brain is wired, making it easier to stick with new behaviors. The power of tracking and reinforcement. One of the key ways to reinforce positive behavior is through tracking progress. Clear shares the example of using a habit tracker as a form of positive feedback. For instance, if you're trying to read more, marking off each day that you read creates a sense of satisfaction and provides a visual representation of progress, reinforcing the habit. This immediate satisfaction becomes a powerful motivator to continue. The role of delayed gratification in habit success. While immediate rewards are key to habit formation, Clear acknowledges that true success lies in balancing short-term satisfaction with delayed rewards. Although the benefits of certain habits, such as fitness or learning, may take time to show up, the immediate satisfaction that comes from the habit itself can keep you engaged in the process. Acknowledging these small wins keeps you moving forward, making it easier to push through the periods when long-term results aren't yet visible. Breaking bad habits by reducing immediate gratification. Clear also discusses how bad habits are formed due to their immediate rewards, such as the instant pleasure of eating junk food or procrastinating. To break these habits, it's important to find ways to reduce the immediate satisfaction. This can be done by creating friction or discomfort around the behavior, such as putting unhealthy food out of reach or using time management tools to avoid distractions. By removing the immediate rewards of bad habits, we make it easier to resist them. Clear concludes by reinforcing the idea that immediate rewards are crucial for behavior change. Whether you're trying to develop a new habit or break a bad one, it's the immediate feedback that keeps you on track. By ensuring that good habits are satisfying and enjoyable, we naturally strengthen them, leading to lasting change. The cardinal rule is simple but powerful. Habits that feel good in the moment are more likely to stick. Chapter 16. How to stick with good habits every day. In Chapter 16 of Atomic Habits, James Clear explores how to maintain consistency and stick with good habits daily. He emphasizes the importance of identity-based habits, focusing on who you want to become rather than what you want to achieve. Clear suggests that small daily actions, when aligned with your identity, can compound over time, leading to remarkable results. The key is to make habits part of your identity, reinforcing your self-image with every action. The power of habit stacking. Clear introduces a strategy called habit stacking, which involves attaching a new habit to an already established one. For instance, if you want to start a daily stretching routine, you might decide to do it right after brushing your teeth. This creates a clear cue for the new habit, making it easier to remember and perform consistently. Habit stacking ensures that good habits are integrated into your daily routine with minimal friction, reinforcing them over time. Environmental design. The chapter also highlights the importance of environmental design in habit formation. Clear explains that your environment plays a crucial role in shaping your behaviors. For instance, if you want to eat healthier, you might place healthy snacks in visible locations while keeping junk food out of sight. Designing your environment to support your desired habits can reduce friction and increase the likelihood of success. By making good habits easy and bad habits difficult, your environment becomes an ally in maintaining consistency. The role of social support. Clear also discusses the role of social support in habit maintenance. He explains that surrounding yourself with people who share similar goals or values can significantly increase your chances of success. For example, joining a fitness group or participating in a habit-forming challenge can provide motivation and accountability. Positive reinforcement from others helps you stay committed to your habits, particularly when motivation wanes. Clear encourages readers to find a community that supports their habits, making it easier to stay on track. Tracking progress and celebrating small wins. To stay on course, Clear recommends tracking your progress and celebrating small wins. This provides immediate feedback, reinforcing the habit and helping you stay motivated. Whether through a simple checklist or a habit tracker app, seeing your progress visually reinforces the behavior, creating a sense of accomplishment. Over time, these small victories add up, making it easier to maintain the habit and integrate it into your daily life. In conclusion, Clear emphasizes that sticking with good habits is not about perfection but about consistency. By focusing on small, incremental improvements and making your habits part of your identity, you can maintain progress over time. Using techniques like habit stacking, environmental design, and social support, you can make good habits a natural part of your daily routine, leading to lasting change. The key is to stay consistent, even when results aren't immediately visible. Chapter 17. How an accountability partner changes everything. In Chapter 17 of Atomic Habits, James Clear explores the powerful role of accountability partners in habit formation and maintenance. He explains that accountability partners serve as external motivators, offering support, encouragement, and reinforcement when sticking to habits. These partners act as a safety net, preventing you from letting yourself down, as they can provide gentle reminders or even consequences when you fall behind. Clear argues that having someone to report progress to can significantly increase your chances of success. The impact of social pressure. Clear discusses how social pressure is a double-edged sword. While it can be uncomfortable, it can also be a great tool for positive behavior change. The presence of an accountability partner creates a form of social pressure that encourages commitment and action. For example, knowing that someone is watching and expecting you to fulfill your promises can be a powerful motivator to take action, even when motivation is low. Clear provides the example of two friends who commit to exercising together. The thought of letting the other person down becomes a powerful motivator to keep going. Setting clear expectations with accountability partners. Clear emphasizes the importance of setting clear expectations when choosing an accountability partner. An effective partnership relies on mutual understanding of goals, progress checks, and consequences. Without clear communication about what's expected, the partnership can lose its effectiveness. He gives the example of two individuals who agree to meet every morning for a workout. If one person does not show up, there are agreed-upon consequences, like donating to a charity or taking on extra tasks. This approach ensures both individuals are invested in holding each other accountable. The power of shared identity and common goals. Clear also highlights the importance of shared identity and common goals between accountability partners. When both individuals share the same goals, it strengthens the connection and reinforces each person's commitment. If your partner is equally invested in the same habits, it can create a sense of camaraderie where both of you are in it together. Clear refers to how many fitness communities thrive because people share a common identity as health-focused individuals. By working together, they support and encourage each other, making it easier to stick with their routines. Accountability and habit tracking. The chapter also connects habit tracking with accountability. Clear advises tracking progress and checking in regularly with an accountability partner. When you track habits, whether on a paper chart or through an app, it allows for visible, quantifiable progress. Clear explains how tracking makes the process more engaging, and sharing that data with an accountability partner makes it even more motivating. Seeing tangible progress shared with someone else adds a layer of accountability, reinforcing positive habits and increasing the chances of long-term success. The importance of trust and positive reinforcement. Clear concludes the chapter by noting that the best accountability partners offer trust and positive reinforcement. It's essential to build a partnership based on mutual respect and encouragement, rather than shaming or criticizing when things go wrong. A good accountability partner will provide encouragement and constructive feedback. Clear shares an example of two friends who support each other's goals by celebrating wins, offering motivational words, and providing guidance when needed. Positive reinforcement nurtures the relationship and helps both individuals stay committed. Clear's main takeaway from this chapter is that an accountability partner can be a game changer in helping you stick with good habits. By providing social pressure, setting clear expectations, sharing common goals, tracking progress together, and offering positive reinforcement, accountability partners make it easier to stay consistent. Whether in fitness, career, or personal growth, having someone to check in with makes your commitment to habits more real and reinforces your dedication. Accountability partners are vital for sustaining good habits over time. Chapter 18. The truth about talent, when genes matter and when they don't. In Chapter 18 of Atomic Habits, James Clear tackles the controversial subject of talent and its role in success. He seeks to address common misconceptions about the influence of natural ability, suggesting that while talent can provide an advantage, it is far from the deciding factor in success. Instead, Clear argues that habits, effort, and persistence are the true driving forces behind achieving mastery. He uses the concept of talent as a foundation to discuss when it matters and when it doesn't. The role of genetics in skill development. Clear acknowledges that genetics plays a role in talent, particularly in areas like physical endurance or cognitive abilities. He provides examples of athletes, such as elite sprinters, who may have a genetic predisposition that gives them an edge in certain activities. However, he emphasizes that talent alone isn't enough to guarantee success. Without the right habits and consistent effort, even someone with exceptional natural ability can fall short of their potential. Clear cites the example of basketball player Michael Jordan, who, despite being cut from his high school basketball team, became one of the most successful players of all time. His success was not due to a natural gift alone, but rather the relentless effort he put into his practice and the habits he built over time. His story illustrates that while some people may have an easier time starting, anyone can improve significantly through focused, consistent practice. The power of deliberate practice. The chapter shifts focus to deliberate practice, a concept introduced by psychologist Anders Ericsson. Clear explains that this type of practice is more important than raw talent. Deliberate practice involves focused, purposeful repetition designed to improve specific aspects of a skill. It requires effort, feedback, and continuous improvement. While talent might give someone an early advantage, it's the commitment to deliberate practice that leads to long-term mastery. Clear reinforces this idea with the example of Mozart, who, despite being hailed as a musical genius, put in countless hours of practice from a very young age. His early exposure to music, combined with his commitment to practice, shaped his extraordinary skill. Clear argues that if anyone were to commit to the same level of practice and focused effort, they too could develop significant proficiency, regardless of their natural ability. How habits shape talent development. Clear highlights how habits are crucial in talent development. While talent may give someone a head start, it is the daily routines and habits they build that ultimately determine their success. A habit of consistent practice, coupled with focused effort, allows individuals to continuously improve and move closer to their goals. Success, therefore, is a byproduct of consistent effort, not an innate gift. He also notes that environment and community play a significant role in the development of talent. Being in an environment that encourages growth and being surrounded by people who share similar goals can help you stay motivated and committed to the process. For example, a person passionate about learning an instrument might benefit from joining a community of musicians who push them to improve, share knowledge, and hold each other accountable. The role of mindset in talent development. Clear then brings in the concept of mindset, influenced by Carol Dweck's research on fixed and growth mindsets. A growth mindset, which believes that abilities can be developed through effort and learning, is crucial for overcoming challenges and persevering in the face of setbacks. Those with a growth mindset are more likely to develop their talents because they view failure as an opportunity to learn rather than a sign of inadequacy. Clear stresses that talent is not a fixed trait, but something that can be nurtured and improved over time. He concludes the chapter by reinforcing that talent does not determine your future success. Instead, it's the combination of effort, habit formation, and a growth mindset that leads to mastery. By focusing on the process of improvement, rather than relying on innate ability, anyone can become highly skilled in their chosen field. The truth about talent is that it matters, but it's not the whole story. Chapter 19. The Goldilocks Rule: How to Stay Motivated in Life and Work. In Chapter 19 of Atomic Habits, James Clear introduces the Goldilocks Rule as a key strategy for maintaining motivation in life and work. According to this principle, people experience the highest levels of motivation when they engage in tasks that are neither too easy nor too difficult, but are just right. By consistently working on activities that are slightly beyond one's current abilities, people stay challenged enough to avoid boredom while preventing the anxiety that can come from tackling tasks that are too overwhelming. The power of optimal difficulty. Clear explains that the concept of optimal difficulty is central to the Goldilocks rule. He highlights that when tasks are in this sweet spot of difficulty, individuals feel stimulated to push their boundaries without feeling overpowered. Clear gives the example of tennis legend Roger Federer, who consistently excelled because his matches were often challenging yet achievable, keeping him engaged and driven to improve. By engaging in tasks at the right level of difficulty, individuals can harness this optimal challenge to maintain motivation and make progress. Clear suggests that this approach can be applied in all areas of life, from work projects to personal development. For instance, in the workplace, setting goals that are a step above current skills can foster growth and keep motivation high. In contrast, overly ambitious or unrealistic goals can lead to discouragement. Clear emphasizes that the key is to continually seek challenges that are achievable with effort, which helps build momentum over time. Staying motivated by seeking flow. Clear also introduces the concept of flow, a state where individuals become fully absorbed in an activity that aligns with their skill level and pushes them just beyond their current limits. When in flow, people experience increased focus, creativity, and satisfaction, which in turn reinforces motivation. Clear describes this state as a product of following the Goldilocks rule, where tasks are neither too simple nor too daunting. An example of this can be seen in artists and athletes, who often reach their peak performance in flow states. Clear mentions how these individuals find fulfillment not only in achieving goals, but in the journey itself. He encourages readers to cultivate a similar approach, seeking out activities and challenges that allow them to enter a flow state, thereby finding sustained motivation through the intrinsic pleasure of the task. The role of feedback and progress tracking. Clear emphasizes the importance of feedback and progress tracking as key components of maintaining motivation. He notes that feedback helps individuals understand whether they are on the right track, while tracking progress serves as a visual reminder of their improvement over time. This approach aligns with the Goldilocks rule because it allows people to adjust their actions to stay within that just right level of difficulty. For example, musicians often track their improvements through recordings, helping them see gradual progress in their skill levels. By visually and audibly observing progress, they can stay motivated to continue practicing. Clear advises readers to apply this principle to their habits by using tools such as journals, habit trackers, or visual progress charts. This feedback loop can reinforce motivation, as seeing consistent improvement is rewarding and encourages further effort. Balancing comfort and challenge for long-term growth. The Goldilocks rule also serves as a reminder of the balance between comfort and challenge in habit building. Clear advises readers to avoid staying too long in their comfort zones, as this can lead to stagnation, yet not to overexert themselves by constantly pushing too hard. He suggests gradually raising the level of difficulty in tasks to keep progressing without risking burnout. Clear provides an example from his own experience with writing, where he sets manageable daily goals that are challenging yet attainable. This balance allows him to make steady progress without feeling overwhelmed, illustrating that the Goldilocks rule is not just about finding motivation, but also about sustaining growth over time. Chapter 20. The downside of creating good habits. In Chapter 20, the final chapter of Atomic Habits, James Clear explores a lesser-discussed aspect of habit formation, the downside of creating good habits. While the primary focus of habit building is often on cultivating behaviors that lead to personal growth and improvement, Clear cautions that there can be unintended consequences if we become overly reliant on our good habits. Specifically, he addresses the potential downsides of good habits when they become rigid or too automatic. The risk of over-automation. Clear begins by discussing how good habits, when repeated enough times, become automatic or habitual. While this automation is generally beneficial, it can also have drawbacks. When a behavior becomes too automatic, you might stop actively thinking about it, and this can lead to a lack of reflection or growth. Clear warns that complacency can set in when habits no longer require active decision-making. As an example, he refers to individuals who develop healthy eating habits. Initially, these habits may contribute to improved health, but over time, they can become so ingrained that they stop being evaluated critically, leading to a situation where people may miss opportunities for even better choices. In this context, Clear notes that the lack of flexibility in habits may lead to stagnation. While habits are essential for making progress, they must still be subject to periodic reassessment. This ensures that we don't miss opportunities for growth or find ourselves stuck in patterns that no longer serve our evolving goals. Clear suggests adopting a reflective approach to our habits, periodically asking whether our habits still align with our larger objectives and values. The danger of identity overload. Another potential downside of good habits is the danger of identity overload. Clear explains that as we adopt new habits and incorporate them into our identity, we may begin to define ourselves too rigidly. For instance, someone who becomes dedicated to fitness might start to see themselves as an athlete, which could create unnecessary pressure to constantly maintain this identity. This can lead to feelings of guilt or inadequacy if they ever deviate from this identity. Clear emphasizes that while identity-based habits can be powerful, they should be flexible rather than absolute. This flexibility allows individuals to adapt when circumstances change without feeling that they are losing their sense of self. Clear highlights an example of a writer who adopts the identity of a writer, leading to daily writing habits. While this identity supports productivity, it can also create pressure to write every day, even when life circumstances might prevent it. When the writer cannot write, the guilt of not meeting their own expectations can override their sense of self-worth. To avoid this, Clear suggests adopting a balanced approach to identity, allowing for adjustments without feeling like a failure when habits can't always be maintained. The pitfall of overdoing it. The final point Clear makes in this chapter is the pitfall of overdoing good habits. While building habits that lead to success is generally positive, Clear warns against the temptation to overcommit to too many habits at once. Overloading oneself with new habits can lead to burnout, where the individual's ability to maintain consistency begins to wane. This is especially true when people try to build habits that require significant time and energy without fully appreciating the mental toll they might take. For example, someone attempting to build multiple habits such as exercise, reading, and healthy eating might experience exhaustion if they don't pace themselves appropriately. Clear advises that building habits should be a gradual, sustainable process rather than an all-or-nothing approach. Clear encourages readers to focus on building habits that enhance their lives without overwhelming themselves. Rather than trying to overhaul everything at once, he suggests building habits one at a time, giving each the necessary attention to become fully established before moving on to the next one. This ensures that habits have a solid foundation and are more likely to stick in the long run. Thank you for joining us on this journey through atomic habits. We hope these insights empower you to start small and create lasting change in your life. If you enjoyed this summary, don't forget to subscribe for more transformative book breakdowns, share with friends who would benefit, and drop a comment. Let us know your thoughts and which book you'd love to explore next. Your engagement fuels our mission to inspire and grow together. Stay tuned, stay curious, and let's build better habits one step at a time.